Sync at 3:30. Hello everybody, my name is Jeremy Molinari, and in today's tutorial we're going to go over the cinematic color grade I did for one of these shots in my reel. Now, this is the clip straight from the camera. As you can see, this is the final result we're ultimately going to end up with. And today I'm just going to walk you through the process of what I did to get this final result. Sorry, I have a bit of a cold. But this was shot on a Nikon D5200 with a custom flat profile, which I can leave the notes for down in the description, on a Rokinon 35mm cine lens, and has been graded in Magic Bullet Looks, which is a, I believe, $400 plugin for Premiere, After Effects, Final Cut, possibly Photoshop, pretty much any editing software you can think of. On that note, let's turn these off and let's get started. Actually, I'm going to keep that on. So, we're going to start by jumping straight into this. In case you're not aware, is what Magic Bullet looks like. These are your scopes: memory colors, hue and lightness, hue saturation, slice graph, and RGB parade. I am not knowledgeable enough to really go into these. I have just a basic understanding of them. But what they do is they tell you various bits of color and light information about your image. I kind of follow them, but I rely on my eye much more. Down here, you have various different presets, while you can also make your own custom. I have a lot of custom, just a couple. Okay. However, for this one, I created my own. Over here you have the controls for your various tools. And here we have our tools. Now, the subject, matte, lens, camera, and post are all different sections you can apply your tools to. And it affects how each affects the image. Like, the one I use most often is something called diffusion. And that would be like if you had a softening filter on your lens. All this is more specific to the lens itself, vignettes, flares, such and such. Camera, this is more like settings you would have in your camera. And post is color correction / grading. Oh, and the subject is kind of self-explanatory. So, something I do for every clip I'm color correcting and grading is I color correct it. Did I mention I'm good with words? So, what that is it's balancing every. If you shot in a flat profile, like I did for this, it is bringing color back into the image and balancing it every clip with the rest of the project. So it's not like shots are supposed to be in the same room. They match each other, even though they're each shot from different angles and under possible different lighting circumstances. So, to begin my color correction process, I always start by turning it black and white. This is just to give me an objective look at where the blacks are, where the whites are, and to get a grayscale, essentially. From here, I always apply curves, and this is just to bring contrast back into the image. I use curves just because I love the control you have with them, but you could use essentially anything to get similar results. Now, as you can see here, I pulled down the blacks just a little bit. If you pull it too far, they clip. So, about here, trying to retain detail in his beard. Detail here, that can be lost. It's black, it's a black cap, and there's no real important information we can salvage here. The big thing is retain detail here, retain detail here in his face primarily. We can lose it here. This controls darker midtones, and again, we're gonna darken this some. What we have here is essentially an S curve with the darker colors being brought down and the lighter colors being brought up. And midtones, darken it. I don't want to completely clip out his face in either direction. I don't want it to be too dark. I don't want it to be too light. And as you can see, if you bring it to extremes, it severely distorts the image. So, I also want to keep just a hint of that light on his face. Here we have the lighter midtones. And that, again, I'm okay with blowing out like the sky, because that's such a small part of the image, and it's also not the focus. But it also brings some of the light back to his face, helps his eyes pop. So we're going to leave that about here. And this, I don't want to clip it completely, so we're just going to leave it about here. If you can avoid clipping, like I always find it best to. So here is the image we're going to be working off of now. Let's turn off hue and saturation, and you can see what that did. Already looking a lot better. Next, we add saturation back in, and this is our color corrected image. I usually, based off of my settings, I usually push the saturation to 180%. 100 is that, and anything lower desaturates the image. For me, that's my usual color correction process. This is the baseline image we'll be working with. Now, for this in particular, I wanted to darken it some, because what I'm going for is a magic hour warm summery vibe. So I applied hue, or sorry, shadows and highlights, which these just brought down, darkened some of the shadows on his face, and in general it darkens the shadows, obviously. So it's like a more specific version of exposure. And then I just bloomed the highlights just a little bit. Just, again, all about contrast. I'm trying to maintain as much of a range between the darks and the lights as possible to try to emulate a filmic look. That range is called dynamic range, which, if you're watching this, I'm guessing you're aware of. Next, then turn on diffusion. And what this does is it blows out the highlights some and just in general softens the image, which again is great for getting a more filmic look. I apply this to pretty much everything, just right now it's not doing too much. It helps preserve details and shadows, but it's gonna look good. It's a step in the process, let's put it like that. Now, something I feel I should mention, I am definitely not a professional colorist, and I highly recommend you play around with these tools yourself if you're able to. I have been studying color theory for about 3 years now, close to 4, and that is only a minor part of my education. So take what I say with a grain of salt, but know that I'm not coming from a complete place of ignorance. On that note, I usually don't do too much in the lens section. I sometimes add a vignette, which in this case, let's just see this. Eh, let's leave it on for now. And I sometimes add lens flares. Yeah, perfect. Okay. On that note, let's move into camera. Again, this is where the color grade comes more to play, wherever we determine the style of the image. Now, I find I usually keep things around negative 270. It just, for me, it helps bring out the skin tones significantly and just isn't pushing it too far. Again, this will vary based off of your own clip. Okay. Add a bit of contrast. That doesn't really do much, but darkens the shadows, blooms the highlights some. Simple stuff. And now, finally, I only applied one thing in post-production, and that is four-way color corrector. This is one of the most useful tools just in this entire plugin. That and curves. Let's apply it. I feel like we're using a bit of detail now. Yeah. Okay, let me just go back and correct this real fast. We're losing detail in his beard. So I'm trying to... Okay, that's about right. So with this, something I always do is apply either blue or green into the shadows, For me, it just, again, it helps give a cinematic look, but, that's just a rule I go by. I also desaturate the shadows just a bit, usually down to 80%, and then resaturate the midtones, again about 120. For this, I saturated the crap out of the highlights. Again, just to push that warm feel. Again, we're going for Magic Hour. And with that, that's my correction and color in Magic Bullet Looks. My color correction and grading in Magic Bullet Looks. There are two more things we have to apply though before we can call this a finished image. So, before and after. Before, after. Okay. So, we have that applied. And then next, I always apply unsharpen mask to an adjustment layer. And what that does is it sharpens your image. I know there's a scientific explanation for why it's called unsharp mask. I don't personally know it. I just kind of roll with it. But as you can see, it's making his eyes pop a lot more. And this is pushing it a bit more than I usually do. Usually, as you can see here, amount is at 100, radius is at 2 pixels, and the threshold I never change. For amount, I usually do 40, but I read some advice to go, but just someone casually mentioned doing 150, and I decided to give it a shot, and I landed at 100. And for a radius, for me, it's always been 2. But as you can see, that gives us a lot closer to a filmic look. So, there's one last thing we need. Something I add to pretty much every project. Anyway. And that is just a PNG I downloaded off the internet for a 1920 by 1080 comp. Now, a big part of acquiring a filmic look is your lighting. This was just, it was about 20 minutes, I'd say, before the sun would really start to set. Very close to magic hour. Okay. Might be getting confused by my own grade, but and because we were driving through trees, we were getting a nice soft light on his face. It was wrapping around. We have this nice edge light going. It was ideal conditions with ideal circumstances, I guess is the best way to put it, even though those are essentially the same thing. With good lighting, you can significantly narrow the gap between a shitty $300 camera and something more expensive. I wouldn't call this like a red, but I'd go as far as to say probably a Black Magic. Not the Ursas, but somewhere in that range. Somewhere like their production or cinema camera. It's not perfect, but I think it looks okay. Let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree. Let me know if you have any tips for me. And let me know if you have any questions. I do try to answer those whenever I can. I hope this wasn't too painful. Next time I do something like this, I'm going to try not to be sick. And see you guys later.